An impressive giant of a ship, Tirpitz was built to be as nearly unsinkable as a ship could be.
The name Bismarck instantly calls to mind one of the most legendary warships of the Second World War, a vessel whose very existence struck fear into the hearts of the Allied navies. Commissioned by Nazi Germany and boasting the size, firepower, and speed that led many to call it unsinkable, the Bismarck was built to dominate the seas and disrupt the vital supply lines that kept Britain alive. In the spring of 1941, it set out on a mission that pitted against the might of the Royal Navy in one of the most intense naval pursuits in modern history. Though it began with a devastating victory over HMS Hood, the pride of the British fleet, the Bismarck's journey ended just days later beneath the waves, where it remains a silent monument to the fierce battles of the North Atlantic. The rise of a naval titan.
Herr Roosevelt verlangt endlich die Bereitwilligkeit, ihm die Zusicherung zu geben, dass die deutschen Streitkräfte das Staatsgebiet folgender unabhängiger Nationen nicht angreifen, und er nennt Finnland, Lettland, Litauen, Estland, Norwegen, Schweden, Dänemark, Niederlande, Belgien, Großbritannien, Irland, Frankreich, Portugal, Spanien, die Schweiz, Liechtenstein, Luxemburg, Polen, Ungarn, Rumänien, Jugoslawien, Russland, Bulgarien, Türkei, Irak, Arabien, Syrien, Palästina, Ägypten.
When the Bismarck was laid down in 1936 at the Blohm & Voss shipyard in Hamburg, it was intended to be the embodiment of German naval ambition. At 821 feet long, displacing about 50,000 tons when fully loaded, and powered by 12 Wagner steam boilers capable of pushing the ship to an impressive 30 knots, it quickly became the pride of Kriegsmarine. It was paired with its sister ship, the Tirpitz, from the core of Germany's surface fleet. The Bismarck carried 8 15-inch main guns capable of firing 1,800-pound shells over 21 miles, along with a dozen 5.9-inch secondary guns and extensive anti-aircraft weaponry. Its armor was formidable, with belt armor up to 13 inches thick and heavily protected turrets. With these capabilities, the Bismarck was more than a match for most Allied warships in a one-on-one engagement. The Royal Navy, however, knew exactly what the ship represented. In a war where Britain's lifeline was its merchant convoys, the Bismarck posed an existential threat. Grand Admiral Erich Ryder, commander of the Kriegsmarine, envisioned these massive surface raiders as convoy killers, designed to cripple Britain's ability to sustain itself. With the memory of World War I still fresh, the German Navy understood it could not defeat Britain head-on in a traditional fleet battle. So it sought to wage a war of attrition, targeting the supply routes that kept Britain alive. By May 1941, the Bismarck was ready for action. Alongside the heavier cruiser Prince Eugen, it embarked on Operation Rheinübung, a mission to disrupt Allied shipping to the North Atlantic. On May 18th, the two ships slipped out of port, aiming to break through into the open Atlantic, where they could wreak havoc on merchant convoys. The mission was strategically vital, but it also set the stage for one of the most dramatic naval chases in history. The British Admiralty was not caught unaware. Codebreakers and intelligence officers quickly identified the Bismarck's intentions, and the Royal Navy scrambled to intercept. What followed was a hunt involving dozens of ships, as the Royal Navy sought to bring its full force to bear on the German battleship before it could devastate Allied shipping lanes. The Bismarck's sortie would be short-lived, but its impact on the naval war and on the British psyche was monumental. The clash in the Denmark Strait.
I was standing on the deck. Then came the alarm.
On May 24, 1941, the Bismarck met its first major opposition in the Denmark Strait, where it clashed with the HMS Hood and the newly commissioned HMS Prince of Wales. The Hood, a battle cruiser dating back to World War I, had been Britain's pride and symbol of naval power for decades, but its design traded armor for speed, a fatal compromise against a ship like the Bismarck. In just minutes, the German battleship demonstrated its lethal potential. The two sides exchanged devastating fire, but the Bismarck's superior gunnery proved decisive. A shell from its 15-inch guns struck the Hood, igniting its ammunition magazine and triggering an explosion so massive it broke the ship in two. Within 10 minutes, the once proud Hood had disappeared beneath the waves, taking 1,418 men with it. Only 3 survivors were pulled from the frigid waters. The loss of the Hood shocked Britain to its core and gave the Bismarck an almost mythic reputation as an invincible juggernaut. But the battle wasn't without cost for the Bismarck. The Prince of Wales managed to score 3 hits, damaging the German battleship's fuel tanks and contaminating part of its fuel supply with seawater. One shell struck near the ship's forward superstructure, causing a 9-degree list to port, while another compromised its propulsion system. Though it could still sail at speed, the Bismarck was wounded, and its ability to carry out its mission was diminished. Captain Ernst Lindemann, understanding the danger of lingering in the area, ordered a retreat. The goal was now to reach the safety of occupied France, where the Bismarck could undergo repairs under the protection of the Luftwaffe. The Prinz Eugen was detached to continue its mission independently, leaving the Bismarck alone. The German warship now found itself hunted across the Atlantic by a Royal Navy eager to avenge the Hood and prevent the Bismarck from escaping to safety. The hunt across the Atlantic. The loss of the Hood galvanized the British Admiralty into action. Prime Minister Winston Churchill famously gave the order, "Sink the Bismarck," and the Royal Navy responded by assembling one of the largest hunting parties of the war. The fleet included 6 battleships and battle cruisers, 2 aircraft carriers, 13 cruisers, 21 destroyers, as well as support from the RAF and reconnaissance aircraft. Despite the overwhelming numbers, catching the Bismarck proved no easy task. Even damaged, it remained one of the fastest battleships afloat, capable of reaching 28 knots. But luck was not on the German ship's side. An oil leak from the earlier damage betrayed its position, allowing British reconnaissance planes to maintain contact. By May 26th, aircraft from the carrier HMS Ark Royal had spotted the Bismarck, setting the stage for the decisive strike. That evening, a squadron of Fairey Swordfish biplanes, outdated but dependable torpedo bombers, launched an attack. The first sortie mistakenly targeted HMS Sheffield, but the blunder revealed that their new magnetic detonators were faulty. Switching to older contact-detonated torpedoes, the Swordfish planes returned for another run. Flying low over rough seas and braving intense anti-aircraft fire, the Swordfish scored a critical hit, striking the Bismarck's stern and jamming its rudder. Unable to steer, the Bismarck could no longer make a direct course for France. It was left circling in the Atlantic, waiting for the inevitable clash with the pursuing Royal Navy task force. As the night wore on, British and Polish destroyers harried the crippled warship with torpedo attacks, exhausting its crew and further damaging its defenses. By dawn on May 27th, the Bismarck was a sitting duck. The royal battle had closed in, and the final battle loomed. The final battle. At 8:47 on May 27th, the battleships HMS Rodney and HMS King George V opened fire, joined by the heavy cruisers HMS Norfolk and HMS Dorsetshire. The Bismarck returned fire, but its inability to maneuver, combined with its listing hull, made accurate targeting impossible. The Royal Navy's heavy guns pummeled the German battleship. Within an hour, the Bismarck's forward turrets had been destroyed, and by 9:31, all of its main guns had been silenced. Secondary batteries continued to spit out defiant bursts, but the ship was effectively defenseless. The British ships closed to point-blank range, just 1.5 miles, and fired salvo after salvo. Even in its final moments, the Bismarck refused to sink. After expending hundreds of heavy shells and more than 2,000 secondary rounds, the Royal Navy launched additional torpedo strikes to finish the job. At 10:39, the Bismarck finally capsized and sank, slipping between the waves. Of the more than 2,200 men aboard, only 116 survived. The Bismarck beneath the waves.
Du meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
For decades, it remained undisturbed, its exact resting place unknown. Then, in June 1989, Dr. Robert Ballard, an oceanographer who had discovered the Titanic 4 years earlier, located the wreck about 600 miles west of Brest, France. It lay nearly 16,000 feet below the surface, standing upright on the seabed against the slope of an underwater mountain. It was in remarkably good condition. Despite the pounding it took from British shells and torpedoes and the violence of its descent, much of the hull remained intact. Germany considers the wreck a war grave, and international law protects it from disturbance. With more than 2,000 sailors entombed within, the Bismarck is both a historical artifact and a memorial. Now it's time to hear from you. What does this story teach us about naval warfare? Let us know in the comments section below.